So even though Alabama has their bye week this week, that doesn't mean we don't have things to talk about as it relates to the Crimson Tide. Because today I want to focus on two names for Alabama that have been playing at another level. There have been a lot of guys we can point to that have played some really quality football this year, but I want to hone in on two guys, and I'm very interested in hearing from y'all. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you believe that Bryce Young will win the Heisman this year? And let me know what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoy this content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions, though small, are massive to content creators such as myself in getting both picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But with all of that being said, let's hop straight into this. And the first player, as you could probably already guess, is none other than Bryce Young. The other player we will be discussing is Will Anderson Jr. But I would like to start with Bryce Young because I posed that question at the beginning for a reason. Bryce Young is on an unreal trajectory, especially for a first-year starter, especially dealing with some problems that previous Alabama quarterbacks didn't have to deal with, and we're going to discuss that. For Bryce Young, being a first-year starter, he has showed uncanny poise in the pocket and control of an offense, which is really incredible when you think about this is the second offensive coordinator he's had, and he didn't even have a full offseason last year because of the COVID protocols that happened. He's on his first full offseason, his second offensive coordinator, and he already has this level of command of Alabama's offense and what Bill O'Brien wants him to do. That is exceptional, especially for a guy who's only a sophomore. But Bryce Young has so many fantastic qualities to what he brings to quarterbacking for the Alabama Crimson Tide. First and foremost, he has a lightning quick release. When he sees an opening, he can flat out let it rip. He's a smaller guy, but his arm is much stronger than many would believe. The other thing he can do is navigate the pocket with an elite presence. Bryce Young has got an ability that you just simply cannot teach that allows him to feel the pocket. He can move around pressure and still keep his eyes downfield to be able to pick apart the secondary. But the thing that is so impressive, apart from his ability to maneuver the pocket, is his ability to throw accurately on the run. This young man has had dimes while on the run this year, and that's something that's awesome to see. The last thing I really want to hone in on is his athleticism, because last week against Tennessee, we got to see how dangerous he can really be. And make no mistake, Bryce has showed what his mobility can buy the Crimson Tide offense all season, but he's just shown it in relation to the passing game. However, this past weekend, we got to see what that mobility looks like when he just decides to flat out run the football. And what we saw was a guy who is incredibly twitchy, who can make guys miss, and all of the times this year where he bounced out the pocket and ended up throwing the ball, well, that ended up coming back and being a net positive, because anytime he bounced out the pocket, the defense's first reaction was not to come and meet him, because they knew if they step forward, he's going to pop it right over their head. He's done it all year long. And so now Bryce and his ability has put defenses in this weird paradox where they know if they come at him, he has the ability to continue navigating the pocket and throw the ball, and now he's put on film that he can flat out break you off and get that first down with his legs. But the things that make Bryce Young so special are not only relegated to his abilities. If we look at where he relates to other quarterbacks around the nation, he's 6th in yards with 2,453. He's 3rd in touchdowns with 26. He's only thrown 3 interceptions, and he has the 2nd highest QBR in the nation at 88.5. Furthermore, he has the 5th highest rating in the nation at 177.1, and he has a 70% completion percentage. All of this while dealing with things that previous Alabama quarterbacks did not have to deal with, and we alluded to that earlier, and I said I was going to touch on it. Bryce Young has already been sacked 17 times. The Alabama offense this year, though incredibly talented, has had its growing pains, and especially the offensive line, especially the right side of the offensive line. Evan Neal is a name that I easily could have included and made this a 3-person video. There are other individuals on this offense we can give plenty of praise to: Brian Robinson, Jamison Williams, John Mechie. There are names, but that's still not to discount that this offense has had its growing pains, and that is reflected in some of the sacks Bryce Young has had to take. So when you put into your mind that this young man is only a sophomore, that he is on his second offensive coordinator, that he is a first-year starter, that he is having to deal with pressure that previous Alabama quarterbacks have not had to deal with, yet he is putting up every bit the numbers they are. It is unbelievably impressive. And there's a reason that Nick Saban and Bill O'Brien have put the faith in this young man that they have. And that begs the question that I asked at the beginning. Can Bryce Young win the Heisman? And right now, if I was a Heisman voter, I know I'm an Alabama fan and this is going to come off as biased, but he would be my favorite. And the reason is very simple. Not only is he successfully leading this Alabama offense with so much new on it, but also how he relates to other quarterbacks. I just gave all those stats. He consistently finds himself within the top 10 of almost any major category. Being a top 10 in yards, being top 5 in touchdowns, being top 2 in QBR, only throwing 3 interceptions, 70+% completion percentage. This young man is having an incredible season. But perhaps the most intriguing thing about it is when we look at the timing of the Heisman, because the ballots will be going out on December 2nd, and they must be filled out and returned by December 9th. And there's not a single Heisman voter with any credibility that will be mailing that ballot back before December 4th. And the reason is December 4th is the SEC championship game. And if the Alabama Crimson Tide continue to win out and Bryce Young continues to play at a high level, that's a collision course for Alabama to take on the current number 1 team in the nation, Georgia, which fields the number 1 defense in the nation. If that's not a Heisman moment in a huge game with playoff implications, I don't know what is. But even leading up to that game, they still have to take on Arkansas, which has had a very solid defense. That's going to be a great game for Bryce to continue building on, and then rival Auburn in the Iron Bowl, one of the most heated, passionate rivalries in all of college football. There are still plenty of Heisman moments for Bryce Young left, and he's already done so much this season. But perhaps no moment will be bigger than if Alabama reaches the SEC championship game and plays Georgia as it pertains to Heisman voting, because that right there is a situation where all Heisman voters should withhold their vote depending on how that game goes down. Because if Bryce balls out and he has that Heisman moment to go along with the season he's already put together, I don't know how you can deny him. But this gets me into my other player we need to focus on, and that is Will Anderson Jr. Because unfortunately, even though Will Anderson Jr. should be getting a trip to New York for that Heisman Trophy, defensive players are just not recognized in the manner they should be. But that does not mean that we need to diminish what he has done. He has the second most tackles on the team for the Crimson Tide. He's leading the nation in sacks at 8.5 sacks. And there are other individuals tied with him for 8.5 sacks. However, when you look at the sack leaders for the nation, there's only one in the top 30 that has more than 50 tackles. Will Anderson. So not only is he having a time affecting the quarterback and getting sacks, he's getting tackles, and he also led the nation the last time I checked in tackles for loss. If he does not still lead the nation in that stat, he has got to be at least top 5 because he was very much well ahead the last time I checked. So you look at Will Anderson as an individual who's lapping the field in terms of people who play his position in tackles, in sacks, in productivity. He has the most tackles for loss, and oh yeah, once again, he's leading the nation in quarterback hurries. Defenses are absolutely keying in on Will Anderson, and they still cannot stop him. Do you want to see what it's like when someone who just cannot be stopped is playing football? Tune in when Alabama plays LSU and hone in on number 31. That young man is astounding, and I can't name too many more players, regardless of offense or defense, that mean more to their respective unit and team than Will Anderson means to Alabama. The way offenses have to scheme for him specifically and what he provides this Crimson Tide cannot be understated. His importance to this Crimson Tide defense is unbelievably high, and because of that alone, mixed with his production, he absolutely should be receiving an invite to New York for the Heisman ceremony, because he is without a doubt one of the best football players in all of the country. In my opinion, with the season he's having, unquestionably the best pass rusher in the country, and we're probably looking at a future top 3 pick in the NFL draft, and he's only a sophomore, and he already had such a leap from year 1 to year 2, and I'm going to tell you something that's scary. Watch him. He's continuing to get better every single week. He has not hit his ceiling, and I have a scary suspicion that there's a ways to go before he hits that. College football needs to be put on notice, and they most certainly already are. It is just a travesty that this young man will probably not be going to New York, where he is absolutely deserving of being invited to. So because of all of that, I really wanted to take the time today to highlight two players for the Crimson Tide, though they are not alone in how they have been playing. These two individuals in Bryce Young and Will Anderson have been playing exceptional football, and their importance cannot be understated for the Crimson Tide and what they're trying to do this year. Bryce Young has been super impressive as a first-year starting quarterback, ranking within the top 5 of almost every major statistical category, only 3 interceptions, 26 touchdowns, number 2 QBR in the nation, and he's on his second offensive coordinator. And even then, we have questions about the effectiveness of Bill O'Brien. What we do not have questions on is that Bryce Young is the guy. And likewise on defense, we knew what Will Anderson was coming into this year. We knew how talented he is. And somehow, he is still playing above expectations. If that's not a generational player, I just don't know what is. But I am very interested in hearing from y'all. First and foremost, do you think Bryce Young will win the Heisman? Do you think he should win the Heisman? Give me a Y for yes, N for no. And then secondly, do you believe Will Anderson should be getting an invite to New York for that same ceremony? Let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.